Japanese cars from the 1970s were slow economy boxes. That's what most people believe, and they couldn't be more wrong. The 1972 Mazda Capella Rotary GS RX-2 could hit 60 miles per hour in under 9 seconds, quicker than many V8 muscle cars of the same era, while disguised as a practical compact car. For decades, these sleeper cars from Japan have been overshadowed by their flashier American counterparts. But true car enthusiasts know that sometimes the most interesting performers are the ones that don't announce their presence with stripes and scoops. Today, we're counting down 4 Japanese sleepers that prove performance doesn't always wear a loud suit. The 1971 Toyota Corona Mark II 1900 SL didn't stand out in traffic. It had the same boxy shape and chrome trim as every other family sedan at the time. Nobody gave it a second look, which turned out to be its greatest advantage. Under that ordinary hood sat a 1.9-liter 8R inline-4 engine, making 105 horsepower and 104 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers won't impress anyone today, but in 1971, they gave this Toyota a hidden edge. Toyota built this engine for reliability first. The company was still establishing its reputation in global markets, and they knew durability mattered more than outright speed. Still, the motor had enough low-end torque to move the car with surprising urgency. The 1900 SL could hit 60 miles per hour in just under 13 seconds. Nothing special by sports car standards, but quick enough to catch other drivers off guard at stoplights. Most people didn't expect a Toyota family car to get off the line that fast. What made the Corona Mark II interesting was how well it balanced performance with everyday practicality. The suspension had just enough stiffness to make cornering predictable without ruining the ride. The interior stayed quiet at highway speeds, and the seats were comfortable enough for long trips. These qualities helped hide the car's capabilities. You could drive it briskly without passengers ever noticing. The SL trim added subtle upgrades over the base model. Toyota tuned the suspension for better road manners and included better interior materials. These changes gave the car a slightly more polished feel without making it look flashy. The steering stayed light at low speeds, but became more precise as you went faster, which was unusual for an economy car at the time. In early 1970s Japan, most cars were either bare-bones economy models or luxury vehicles with price tags to match. The Corona Mark II found a middle ground. It gave drivers decent performance without costing a fortune or drawing attention. People bought it because it was practical, then discovered it could be fun when pushed. That was Toyota's clever trick. They built a car that exceeded expectations without bragging about it. American muscle cars of the same era made no secret about their power. They had scoops, stripes, and rumbling V8s that announced their presence before they even moved. The Corona did things differently. Its power delivery was smooth rather than explosive, and it handled better than its look suggested. While Detroit was building cars that went fast in straight lines, Toyota made one that could carry 4 people comfortably while still being enjoyable to drive. This generation of Corona Mark II doesn't get much attention from collectors today. Most people remember the flashier Japanese cars from the 1970s, not the quiet performers. But the 1900 SL proved something important. You didn't need outrageous styling or a big engine to make driving enjoyable. Sometimes the most interesting cars are the ones that don't look interesting at all. The 1974 Nissan Bluebird 610 SSS didn't shout about its performance. At first glance, it looked like a slightly dressed-up version of the standard Bluebird that accountants and schoolteachers drove. Nissan slapped a super sport sedan badge on the back, but most buyers probably thought that was just marketing hype. They didn't realize how much work went into making this version different. Under the hood sat a 1.6-liter L16 engine with twin Hitachi SU carburetors. This setup pushed out 109 horsepower, which doesn't sound like much today but was a big step up from the standard Bluebird's output. More importantly, it made 101 pound-feet of torque at lower RPMs, which meant the car felt more responsive in everyday driving. The 0 to 60 time of 11.5 seconds wouldn't scare any muscle cars, but it was quick enough to surprise people who thought they were dealing with an ordinary compact. Nissan didn't just tweak the engine, The real magic was in the suspension tuning and steering setup developed specifically for the SSS. Engineers stiffened the springs and dampers just enough to improve cornering without ruining ride comfort. The steering rack was quicker than in standard models, giving drivers more feedback through the wheel. These changes transformed the Bluebird from a basic commuter car into something that could actually be fun on a twisty road. The problem, or perhaps the genius, was that none of these improvements were obvious at a glance. The SSS trim added small exterior details like different badging and wheel covers, but nothing that shouted performance car. The interior got marginally sportier seats and a slightly thicker steering wheel, but nothing drastic. This subtle approach meant most drivers never realized what they were looking at, which was exactly what Nissan wanted. American muscle cars of the same era made their intentions obvious. They came with scoops, stripes, loud exhausts, and hoods that practically bulged with displacement. The Bluebird SSS did things differently. Its power delivery was smooth rather than explosive, with the twin carburetors helping the engine breathe better at higher RPMs. The handling was balanced rather than aggressive, letting drivers carry speed through corners without drama. This made it a perfect car for people who wanted performance without attention. Some test drivers noted the suspension could feel soft when pushed to its limits. The tires were still narrow by modern standards, and body lean was noticeable in hard cornering. But these flaws also made the car more forgiving to drive at normal speeds. What mattered was that the SSS version transformed the Bluebird into something more engaging without losing its everyday practicality. Nissan didn't sell the SSS to compete with proper sports cars. It was meant to give ordinary drivers a taste of performance without the drawbacks of a dedicated sports model. The comfortable rear seat and decent trunk space stayed intact, keeping the car useful for daily life. This approach eventually became common among Japanese manufacturers, but in 1974 it was still novel. The Bluebird 610 SSS didn't make headlines when it was new, and it doesn't get much attention from collectors today. That's partly because its conservative styling blends in with countless other Japanese sedans from the era. But this anonymity was the whole point. Nissan proved you could build an enjoyable driver's car without flashy looks or a massive engine. Sometimes the most clever performance cars are the ones that don't look like performance cars at all. The 1975 Mitsubishi Galant GTO 2000 GSR looked like someone had shrunk an American muscle car. With its long hood, short deck proportions, and faux vents on the fenders, it clearly took styling cues from Detroit. Many assumed it was just another Japanese car trying too hard to look fast. They were wrong. Under that aggressive bodywork sat an engine that could back up the muscle car attitude. The 2.0-liter Saturn Inline-4 used twin Mikuni Solex carburetors to produce 125 horsepower and 130 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers don't sound groundbreaking today, but in 1975, they gave the GSR a power-to-weight ratio competitive with smaller American V8s. The car weighed just 2,200 pounds, which helped it hit 60 miles per hour in 9.7 seconds. That was quicker than many base-model muscle cars from the same era. The difference was that the Mitsubishi didn't need a huge engine to do it. Mitsubishi didn't stop at just tuning the engine. They gave the GSR front disc brakes when most Japanese cars still use drums all around. The close-ratio 5-speed manual transmission let drivers keep the engine in its power band much better than the 3- and 4-speed boxes common at the time. Engineers also stiffened the suspension considerably compared to the standard Galant. These changes transformed what could have been just another sporty-looking coupe into a genuine performance car. The trade-off for that performance became obvious on rough roads. The firm suspension that made the GSR handle so well also made the ride uncomfortably stiff over bumps. The interior materials weren't any better than in cheaper Mitsubishi models, just with some extra gauges and a sportier steering wheel. These compromises showed where the company had to cut costs to make the performance parts affordable. Most buyers never noticed the GSR's capabilities because the styling overshadowed everything else. The long hood made the car look front-heavy, and the wide C-pillars created blind spots worse than many American coupes. Mitsubishi even added fake hood scoops that did nothing except make the car look faster at standstill. All these styling tricks meant people either loved or hated how the car looked before they ever drove it. What made the GSR special was how it drove once you got past the looks. The engine loved to rev, pulling strong all the way to its 6,500 RPM redline. The steering had more feedback than most Japanese cars of the era, and the suspension kept the car remarkably flat in corners. Unlike many American muscle cars that felt sloppy on twisty roads, the GSR could actually handle turns with some precision. Mitsubishi didn't sell many of these cars outside Japan, which is why so few people remember them today. The company was still establishing itself in global markets, and they focused most of their export efforts on practical sedans, rather than performance models. That limited availability helped the GSR stay under the radar even when it was new. The Galant GTO 2000 GSR tried to do two things at once: look like an American muscle car while driving like a more refined Japanese performance car. It wasn't perfect at either, but the attempt was more successful than most people expected. The car proved Japanese manufacturers could build capable performance machines when they wanted to, even if they sometimes wrapped them in questionable styling. In hindsight, the GSR might have been more successful with less dramatic looks. The muscle car styling attracted attention, but also set expectations the car couldn't quite meet. What mattered was that Mitsubishi built something genuinely interesting at a time when most Japanese cars played it safe. The company would later apply what they learned with the GSR to more focused performance models, but this was where they first showed they could compete. The 1972 Mazda Capella Rotary GS RX-2 looked like just another compact sedan. Most buyers didn't realize it housed something unusual under the hood. Mazda had fitted it with their 12A Wankel rotary engine, a radically different design from the piston engines everyone else was using. The rotary concept wasn't new, but Mazda was the only company making it work in mass-produced cars at the time. At one point, 2 liters of displacement, the 12A engine was small by American standards, yet it produced 130 horsepower, more than many 2.0-liter piston engines could manage then. The rotary design meant the engine could spin to higher RPMs without shaking itself apart. It also weighed less than conventional engines, helping keep the RX-2's total curb weight around 2,200 pounds. That power-to-weight ratio let it hit 60 miles per hour in under 9 seconds, putting it ahead of many contemporary V8 muscle cars in straight-line speed. Rotary engines worked differently from piston engines. Instead of pistons moving up and down, a triangular rotor spun in an oval chamber. This design eliminated the vibrations that came with reciprocating piston motion. The result was an engine that ran remarkably smooth even at high RPM. Many test drivers noted how effortlessly the RX-2 revved compared to piston engine cars. The engine note was different too, more of a high-pitched whine than the usual engine growl. Mazda hadn't just dropped an unusual engine into a standard car, they'd designed the RX-2 around the rotary's characteristics. The lightweight front end helped with weight distribution, making the car more balanced in corners than most sedans of its size. Steering was precise if a bit light by modern standards. The suspension handled bumpy roads better than many sports cars while still keeping body roll in check during hard cornering. These traits made the RX-2 enjoyable to push on back roads where its handling could shine. The styling didn't hint at any of this performance potential. Apart from small rotary engine badges, the RX-2 looked nearly identical to the piston engine Capella models. Mazda offered it with the same color options and trim packages as the regular versions. The interior was just as basic too: vinyl seats, plastic trim, and a no-frills dashboard. Only the tachometer, with its higher redline marking, hinted that this wasn't an ordinary economy car. Early rotary engines had some drawbacks. They burned more oil than piston engines as part of their normal operation, which confused first-time owners. Fuel economy wasn't great either. The RX-2 averaged about 15 miles per gallon around town, worse than many V8s of the era. Seal wear could become an issue after 60,000 miles or so, requiring expensive rebuilds. These quirks made the rotary something of an acquired taste among mechanics and owners alike. Detroit didn't see rotary engines as a threat at first. American manufacturers had experimented with the concept but abandoned it as impractical for mass production. Mazda proved them wrong by resolving enough of the technical challenges to sell rotary cars in volume. The RX-2 showed Japanese automakers could innovate in ways the established players hadn't anticipated. What made the RX-2 special was how it delivered performance without the usual trappings. It didn't need loud exhausts or flashy stripes to go fast. The smooth power delivery and high revving nature gave it a character unlike anything else on the road. Mazda would refine the rotary concept in later models, like the RX-7, but the RX-2 was where they proved the technology could work in everyday cars. Few people recognized the RX-2 for what was at the time. It looked too ordinary to stand out, and its unusual engine scared off traditional buyers. Those who tried it discovered something genuinely different. The car was quicker than it had any right to be, handled better than it looked like it should, and did all this while feeling completely unlike anything else on the road. That was the rotary revolution Mazda was selling: performance through innovation rather than brute force. These Japanese sleepers proved you didn't need a V8 or flashy looks to deliver performance. Cars like the Mazda RX-2 and Nissan Bluebird SSS showed what happened when engineers prioritized driving dynamics over appearances. Buyers overlooked them at the time because no one expected excitement from Japanese sedans. Today, collector interest is growing for models like these, with prices rising as enthusiasts rediscover their appeal. They represent a forgotten chapter where Japanese automakers first proved they could build engaging cars. Their combination of innovation and subtlety makes them stand out in a world that usually equates performance with loud